What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Resars podcast with tech and sports and daily refinement. Today, we have a really special episode. We're going to talk about one of the key secrets to success as a reseller, which is developing a route. We're going to give you guys tips and secrets and hints to try to get the best stuff along your route. And the first half of the podcast is available for free on YouTube. The second half is in our Patreon, where we're going to get into a lot more of the juicy, maybe topics we don't want to talk about on YouTube. We'll talk about in the private room. So if you guys have any questions while listening right now, pop it into the chat and we'll get to it. The conversation today is live recorded every single week in front of our Patreon members so they can ask questions as we go. Also, some other housekeeping. We want to plug the calls that we have going in the group, including the first one tomorrow with Mark. Tech, do you want to go over that? We're going to offer some photography help.
Yeah, so Mark is going to do a photography call because, as we all know, photography is a never-ending subject that, just about everybody needs help in. So, Mark is very good at that, very knowledgeable on that. He's helped a lot of people inside the group make their photos look nicely. So Mark is going to do a call every other Thursday for photos. So that should help a lot of people out as well.
So every other week on Thursday with Mark, every other week with Cheryl, we are going to do some accounting help. She's an accountant. She also has a spreadsheet, and we're going to answer questions every other week on that topic as well. And then on Fridays, we have Jack Weaver at Video Game Source on Instagram. He does talk about bolos. He's an Amazon expert. He did $1 million last year in video game sales, and um, he focuses 100% on online arbitrage and video games for the most part on Amazon. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, we're going to talk about today's topic, which is developing a route. And I'm just going to start right away with consistency of route is a game changer. Once you start consistently going on a route, stores that you go to, things that you're looking for, you start to build up momentum. I've been doing the same exact sourcing schedule of 2 days a week the entire year. And every single week, it gets a little bit better. I learn a new brand here or there. I learn a new defect I should be looking for. I've learned a lot more about counterfeiting, stitching. I've learned about different categories. But I think consistency starts all of that momentum. If you don't go every week, you won't notice these little things.
Yeah, totally. Consistency is the key with everything, and that's the same topic that pops up all the time. But like you said, if you have a consistent route, um, what ends up happening is you're more likely to run into the home runs and the grails if you're consistent. If you go every now and then, it's a lot more difficult to find those more sought after items as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to if you actually are really hitting it. So, for me, I had a store route that at its peak was about 45 stores per week, somewhere between 45 and 47 stores per week. It was a 7 day a week route. And then on Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, I would also go to the flea market. And then on Sunday, I would go to another flea market. So it was 4 times at the flea market per week, and then 45 to 47 stores per week. So it was a very thorough route. Pretty much everything in the vicinity made its way through me in one way or the other. And that was really my goal at the end of the day. I didn't want anything to slip through, and I totally wanted to dominate every single aspect of sourcing. A lot of people in the group have also picked up flea markets because we've talked about that a lot. And flea markets can be a total game changer. They're not all the same in every location. Some of them have great ones, some of them they're not so good. But some cities have multiple flea markets where, one is more of like the brand new kind of like widgets that they sell. And some of them are just people that pop up garage sale style. And the garage sale style is really the one that you want to go to. So a lot of people in the group have picked up the flea market routes and have done great. So I know you do the flea market route now, and that's something that's kind of newer, I believe. And I think that so far you've been doing great there, because the best thing at the flea market is once you go consistently and once the vendors learn what you buy, then they become sources for you, and then they become friends with you, and they'll hold stuff for you and they'll give you good deals. You scratch their back, they'll scratch your back. But I had great success at the flea market, and without that, it would be very difficult for me to do the 120 per day that I was doing at that time.
What happens when you're consistent is people start to learn what you buy. and they start to pick up things maybe they wouldn't have picked up if they know you're already the buyer.
Yeah, it's a guaranteed sale.
Guaranteed sale. So essentially what you're looking for, the ultimate theme of this is business to business. When you establish a relationship with a vendor at a flea market, it's much different than a person that just got a booth for that one weekend. Or a garage sale, it's difficult to build a long-term relationship because they don't do a garage sale every single week forever. At a flea market, somebody might have had the same booth for 20 years.
Right. They both have their pros and cons. The
Hmm.
the parents who set up at the flea market, those are usually great because they don't know the value of all of their stuff. They're more than likely just spring cleaning or getting rid of a lot of stuff, and they don't really care to maximize the dollar. But the regular vendors, they have a good idea of what things are worth, and they're trying to maximize the dollar. But like you said, those are going to be repeat customers for you as a buyer. So, the people that pop up one or two times, that's where you're going to get a lot of the home runs. The people that are professional vendors, that's where you can get a lot of the bread and butter, where they leave you meat on the bone and can help sustain your business. So both of them have the pros and cons, but you definitely have to treat them both a little bit differently.
I mean, different vendors are different too. And this is why when people ask for scripts or what should you say, it depends on what the vendor is. If the vendor is somebody who they don't want to pack up the stuff at the end of the day,
Yeah.
that person is different than someone that's okay with waiting forever. There's at my flea market, there are people who only sell grails. Everything in their booth is over $50. They will wait 5 years to sell an item. They're in no hurry. That person probably will not give you a discount.
There's people at my flea market that will hold a $2 item for 5 years. So everybody is different. And everybody's free to operate their business as they want. But like with the flea market, like when you continuously bring something out, it ends up getting damaged. It ends up getting like sun faded and sunburned. And like maybe before it was worth $50, but now it's all tore up from going in and out, being out in the elements, that now it's worth $10. And they maybe just should have took the $20 price that they got 4 years ago for it. So like, the flea market is like a strange breed, but it is a very good place to source. And there's all types of vendors there. The storage unit guys are great because if you can saddle up next to those guys, they have never ending supply of inventory
Mhm.
that they just have to turn as quick as possible because they almost have an addiction to go out and buy more units. And they can't buy more units without getting rid of the previous unit because then they're stuck paying for storage units. And then one day someone's going to be bidding on their storage unit that they didn't pay for. So that's a whole mindset there. Then you have the professional vendors, and then you have the mom and pop vendors that are out there for a little while. But like you said, each one got it kind of has to be treated a little differently. But if you can have a couple solid storage unit vendors that look out for you, or some professional vendors that maybe source at the bins all week, maybe they have a thrift route, maybe they do a lap at a flea market in the morning before it opens, maybe they have a garage sale route that they go to and bring everything to the flea market. If you can have them looking out for you, the storage unit guys looking out for you, and then when you see people who don't go and it's just their first time out there, or they're one and done, and then you go in there and you find the items of value there. So you have to have a working relationship with each one of those people. And if they know you're always going to be there, if they know that your money is always good, and that if they present you with a deal, you're going to buy it, because there's nothing worse than them holding an item all day and then you see them 2 or 3 hours after the flea market has opened and you pass on the deal because they could have sold it 3 hours ago during prime time, but like it's not peak traffic right now, so they might get stuck with this till tomorrow or all the way until next week. So if they know that they present you with a deal and it's not too large for you and that you're going to do the deal, they're going to hold items for you and make sure that you can make money while they make money at the same time as well.
You're always going to show up and you're always paying full. Those are the two most important things you can establish yourself as.
Yeah.
And it's I'm going to switch gears a little bit here to go to thrift stores because a lot of people thrift. And the flea market is a different breed. I know we talk about the flea market a lot, but the thrift store is a little bit different because it's not really based on long-term relationships. It's sort of based on that region. Where I live, every single thrift market gets similar items. Like if you go to a certain thrift store, they're not going to, it's going to sort of be what the people are around there that are donating to that specific location. At least where I live, all of the Goodwills here, Salvation Armies, they have different things in them.
For here, it's different. All the donations go to the back.
Mm,
None of the donations go to the floor. They all get put on an 18 wheeler and go to a processing facility. Then they get
mm,
sent back to the stores.
I see.
So in my district, I have never one time seen a video game in the district. Goes
Mm,
straight to online. So everything goes in the back, goes on a semi, goes to a processing facility, and Salvation Army prices it at the processing facility, sends it back to the store. The store just puts it out. For Goodwill, it comes back to the store, and then they price it and they put it out. So you can drop something literally in the back of my Goodwill. It could go somewhere like Orlando, and it can get sent right back to my Goodwill. That's how they operate. That's how they roll, and every district is going to be different. But I think the biggest key for flea market success, thrift success, is show up as early as possible.
mm.
If you can show up when the doors are open, I've found the most success doing that. And there's a lot of reasons why. Number one, a lot of reselling people are lazy and a lot of them like to sleep till 10 or 12 noon. So if you can go in there while everyone's still asleep, you're going to find everything. A lot of people do this during the lunch break. If you can go in there before lunch break, you find a lot of things. A lot of people do this after work. If you can go in there before work is over, you find a lot of things.
Mm.
So I like to be there as soon as the door opens. For instance, one of them would open up at 8:30. I would hit that one. The one down the street opens up at 9. I'm already there waiting in line at 9. Go in there, get that stuff. The one next to it opens up at 9:30. So I would literally hit 3 stores the second that they open, all within 1 hour. And that's how I kind of planned my route to be the first one or one of the first ones there. Because the first hour of every business is usually pretty slow. So I know a lot of people like to sleep in. I know a lot of people go during lunch, and I know a lot of people go after work. So for me, I wanted to be there early. I wanted to be there often. And you can say what you want that, they put out stuff in the afternoon, so it's better to go in the afternoon. But like I got the stuff that they put out yesterday afternoon. So like that part all evened out to me. But I know peak traffic is going to be during lunch and 5 or 6 o'clock while people are coming home from work. And I wanted to beat that peak traffic because the worst thing that you could do is spend hours per day standing in line.
I was looking at there's a couple of things this reminds me of. Waiting in line is a huge time suck.
Yeah.
If you are one of those, pretty much everyone who's been reselling for a while has heard of the Nike's Friends and Family deal. It's like a certain percentage off. It happens a few times a year. If you were to go to the Nike Friends and Family deal on a Saturday at 2 p.m., it'll probably take 3.5 hours to check out one time. The line is like here, the line is insane. It's blocks long. And there's no, they also have per item limits. It would be very difficult to, I think it's 10 per SKU. It'd be very difficult to buy enough inventory to source if you go at the wrong time. That's a huge tip. When I had Hustler Hacks and Hustlebee stayed with me out here, and their goal was to hit 18 stores per day they were here. And I was thinking about, okay, how do they do that? They meticulously planned reverse traffic
Yep.
at my house to do that. They're like, this is no joke. If you live in California, if you don't hit the traffic right, you're not going anywhere. So they did it right. They were the first people in the door at the best stores they wanted to hit. It's a planning game. If you want to make the most of your time, you got to go reverse traffic if you're in an area that's populated.
Yep. So I did the same thing, reverse traffic. I was always on the road during off hours. So I would always get to the thrift before rush hour, hit those little groups, and then be back on the highway after rush hour. Because you can't sit in line on the highway and you can't sit in line checking out. That's a massive waste of time. So that is super, super important. And if you could develop a route where you can be reverse traffic and you can be everywhere outside of prime time, then you have the place to yourself and you can really, get everything that you want, check out nice and easy, stress free, and get on to the next store. Definitely.
So traffic is really important. Also, like you said, a lot of stores are in groups.
Yeah.
There's certain neighborhoods, there's certain complexes that have more than one store in them. And I think it's important to group those together. And one more thought is that, at least here, I know your store, they go to a processing center, but here, certain stores take time to replenish.
Hmm.
Here, there's certain stores you couldn't go to every day. There wouldn't be enough stuff.
Right. Yep. Totally. So like for me, most of the stores I would hit once a week because they would need a week to refresh to make it worth the time of running through the racks all over again. A few stores I would hit bi-weekly, like maybe Monday and maybe Friday. But most of the time it was really a 1 week period that it took to refresh. And every now and then I would pop into those stores 2 or 3 days later just to make sure like a lot of other stuff wasn't getting put out for others. And I would go in there and find 2 or 3 pieces when had I just wait one more week, I would go in there and find 30, 40, or 50 pieces. So, you do definitely have to keep up on their schedule as well, because sometimes they put out in the morning before they open, during lunch in the afternoon. All the places are different, and you just have to kind of get to know their rotations and their schedules as well. Definitely.
There's different things that are common in different areas. Here, honestly, 100% of the time I go thrifting, I will find Patagonia. I will find the North Face. It's just so heavy here, right? But again, I found one Southern Tide shirt in like hundreds of thousands of items that I've looked through. It's just not, they don't sell it here, right? Pendleton, big on the West Coast. Pendleton might be big everywhere, but it's just like there's very little LL Bean where I live, very little Carhartt. So it really depends on where you live. And if you're looking at, let's say, hard goods, here, it's illegal to have a pawn shop. There are no pawn shops in Northern California. So a lot of this stuff that you guys in different states, it might be at a pawn shop, it's at a thrift store here. So it depends on it. Everything is different.
Yeah, and that's like a question that I get pretty often, especially on Instagram, is like, give me the top three brands that you buy, or like, give
Yeah.
me like the top three sleeper brands that you buy. But like, it's very like region specific because, like you said, you find a lot of Pendleton like heavy wool items. I
Right.
don't find a lot of heavy wool items. I find more polyester, more dry fits, more beachy stuff, more outdoor stuff. So like for me, I can tell you the top three brands that I sell, but like if you live in Wisconsin, it's going to be totally different.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to find what works best in your area. And every area has a point that like you can exploit for like maximum dollars. So like down here, like I can, there's like no shortage of button up shirts. And even though button up shirts have a very slow sell through rate, like PFGs I can get all the time for a couple of dollars. Where like if you live in maybe Milwaukee, you might never even find one. So
Mm.
like every opportunity, every district or every place has something that you can exploit and some opportunity that you can exploit. Down here, it's just a massive amount of volume that rolls through. That's the opportunity that I needed to exploit because this is the last destination before a lot of this stuff leaves the country and either goes to Africa, South America, the Caribbean, and just the massive volume of stuff was my opportunity. So like everywhere has an opportunity. You just have to figure out what the weak point is and go from there.
So I have a question for you. I've been going now, I've probably gone on 100 sourcing trips this year so far around. So every time I've been looking up different brands as I go, things I don't know. And I would say that nothing has made me feel like I know nothing like the Facebook group
Mm.
because people are posting on Sundays. We post what sells, and I can't believe some of the stuff that sells and the price it sells for. And people know why. They
Yeah, of
know
course.
why it's sold for so much. You sold a pair of shorts for a lot of money that I would have sold for nowhere near that because you picked up knowledge somewhere.
Yeah, you messaged me yesterday. Is this a typo on the
Yeah,
price?
that's what
I
I said.
said no, and then they sold today. So I sent you a picture of that. But yeah, you just have to know, and in order to know is just handling a lot of stuff, selling a lot of stuff, keeping a memory of what stuff sells for. Whenever you get got, if you list something too cheap and it sells immediately, you
Yep.
say, okay, I lost that one, but I got to remember down the line that this item sells. So when I do see it again, I can't get caught slipping and I got to price it higher. Happens to everybody, man. You just can't get caught up into it. You bought it for a couple of bucks. You still made a couple of bucks. Next time you buy it, you just got to price it up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it just comes with a lot of experience, maybe having like a good memory for some type of things. But people always post tags and brands and styles, and hopefully once you educate them on the brand and the style, hopefully they can retain that knowledge and then pass it along to somebody else as well. Because if you're just telling people, it really doesn't nobody no good. So like today, that polo bear sweater that you posted,
Yep.
the tag, maybe if you don't know the tag, maybe that could pass. But that white tag that said L, it looked like on the side seam,
That's right.
that's the dead giveaway.
That's right.
That's the dead giveaway. So whenever any kind of brand has that like wonky little white tag with the size, that's the dead giveaway that it's fake.
So upon further examination of that garment, the person that counterfeited that sweater sewed a
real tag.
a real tag on it.
Yeah. But even though the tag was real, it was not placed properly. It didn't have the proper thread. Right. But whenever you see that white size tag in any brand, that's the dead giveaway that is a fake item. And now that you've seen that, and now that you know that, you'll go from here and you'll see it, and you won't even have to ask. That's fake. I can't do it. That's the tip. That little white tag is the dead giveaway for every brand. Those are on a lot of soccer jerseys that are fake. So that's just definitely something you have to look out for, that little tiny white tag. Those are on a lot of fake Nike shirts that are fake. Those little white tags. Yep.
We have Philip in the group who sells toys, and his bolo posts are mind-blowing because plush to me, it seems like every single plush would be worth $20. Not true. Nope. He sells plush all the time for $50+, sometimes higher.
Yeah, if you can get the Build-A-Bears, the hidden Mickeys, anything Mario from the 80s, 90s, that stuff is killer, man. And it don't break and don't cost a lot to ship. That's a beautiful place to be.
I love it. So he's asking in the chat, he usually hits up yard sales Saturday morning. That's where the big part of his success is. Do you think it's worth it for him to go to the flea market after, even though he will be arriving around noon? A lot of the good stuff might be gone. What's your take?
If he does toys and plush, the good stuff ain't going to be gone, because a lot of people are not knowledgeable about that. And the stuff is so small, you really have to dig in, and a lot of the good stuff can be overlooked or not seen. So I would definitely go to the flea market, even only just to make connections with people who source toys and sell toys. I would definitely be out there at 12.
When you go to a thrift, do you go section by section by section by section, or do you do one quick lap around the whole place first to see if there's any bangers right from the beginning? What's your strategy?
The strategy for me is, since we don't have a lot of electronics here, those all get sent online or somewhere else. There's no video games, like there's no glass case. I've never bought anything from the glass case. The glass case here is just jewelry. And a lot of it is costume, which, I don't mess with it. Maybe it's overpriced. I don't know. But for me, I go to the jerseys, because the jerseys is the lowest hanging fruit that the most uneducated thrifter can go to and make money. So I go to the jerseys first. After that, I go to the jackets, to the sweaters. After that, I go to the polo shirts. After that, I go to the button-ups. After that, I go to the T-shirts. And then I do shorts, pants, mosey through the kids section, look for kids jerseys, kids Patagonia, kids North Face. Do a lap around the toys just to take a look. Maybe you see something. And then I'll kind of poke around in the bed sheets for a little bit. Maybe you see, a He-Man set or a Star Wars set, or, an Aladdin set. Those sell for great money. And then I'll hit the women's just jackets. So if I can get like a Patagonia or a North Face real quick. And that route is broken down by price. So jerseys are going to sell for $20 and up. Jackets are going to sell for $20 and up. Sweaters, 20 and up. Polo shirts, 20 and up. Button-up shirts, 15 and up. T-shirts are going to be your least ROI unless you kill it and hit a home run with a T-shirt. But a lot of T-shirts here, maybe 1 out of 300 would get picked up. So I always go for the highest ROI and work myself down to the lowest ROI, because I don't want to look through the T-shirts and find a bunch of $12 and $15 shirts and have somebody else look through the jackets and find $50 jackets and $30 jackets. So that's why my route is set up that way. And I feel that that's the most bang for the buck.
So, I think this comes with the territory of being an experienced reseller. When you're first starting, you'll look at teacups, you'll look at glassware,
Yep.
you'll find something that's worth a lot of money because you saw it in a Facebook group, but then you haven't calculated the time to store it. Photographing fragile items is very difficult. It's just there's a lot that goes into selling rare or antique items. It's not just photo and list. It's more complicated than that.
Yeah, some of the stuff is breakable. Some of the stuff you have to have a floating box.
Hmm.
A lot of that stuff you really, really need to be an expert. Like you might be like a 15-minute expert, but there's like people that have like 15 years of expertise. And a lot of like 15-minute expert is going to result in overpricing because you're going to think it's worth way more than it's actually worth.
That's
And
right.
like the 15-year experts are never going to buy it. So you buy this thing, you probably pay up a little bit, you think it's going to be $150, but it's really worth more like $50. So since you've already paid up and you're asking 3 times the price, you have to wait for the person that's going to overpay. And that's what a lot of people do. They're too afraid to take a couple dollars profit and cut their loss. When they pay up, they feel like, I still have to 5 times my money, or I still have to 3 and 4 times my money. And, at the end of the day, you have money locked up in that item that is not going to sell because it's overpriced and it was a bad buy that you could have reinvested into more inventory and made more money. And then on top of that, now you have to ship it. Now you have to have extra insurance. Now you have customer service. Since you're not an expert in that item, you don't know how to expertly pack the item. So now you're going to have customer service where someone writes you and say, hey, this item arrived broken. What are you going to do for me? Like there's a lot of things that go into not being an expert and just kind of winging it. So like I winged it on some stuff in the beginning, and like I only had to wing it one time to figure out like I can't wing it. Like I found like reel to reel players,
Yep.
and like yeah, they sell for a lot of money, but I don't know how to ship those when I'm a brand new seller. Like I'm 2 months in and I'm trying to pack a reel to reel player, and I'm using garbage as filler. I'm not packing it right. I'm not double boxing it. Send it to the customer. They say it's broken. And what are you doing? You don't even know what you're doing. So you have no right in the world to sell that stuff if you don't know what you're doing. So like a lot of that is a learning curve and a learning process. And learning anything costs money and costs time. So everyone has to learn. That's apples to apples. But like there has to come a point where like you have to learn that those items are not profitable anymore. So like I learned what was profitable for me. I learned wasting my time dealing with reel to reel players is not profitable because in that same amount of time I could list 40 pieces of clothes.
That's exactly right. And I have been mesmerized with all that crazy stuff, the vintage electronics that sell for $500. But I sold a Marantz record player for $700. I had to take it to a vintage record player shop to get it looked at. He told me all these things that would go wrong with it, and said, if you don't want this coming back, you should probably do this, or at least put in your listing that this can be done to fix it. So then there goes half a day, post it. The person that wanted to buy it had 18 questions I did not know how to answer on the item, right? Then had to take it to a UPS store because I was too afraid to pack it. And they're like, okay, it's $110 to pack this because this is extremely fragile.
Yep.
This, any of these components break, this record player is done.
Yep.
So all of that, it's so mesmerizing when you see the $40 cost, $800 sold on eBay. It sounds amazing, but really, you might have lost money after everything's said and done, and it might get returned.
Yeah. So that half trip to the expert,
Yep.
half day trip to FedEx to get it professionally packed,
Yeah.
half day trip to test it, half day trip to learn about it and list it. Like you
Mhm.
have 3 days locked up in this thing. How many pieces of clothes that you know what you're doing about? How much of that stuff could you have got listed in the meantime? And I guarantee it would have been worth more than the $300 net, not even counting your time of visiting and driving around town that you got making or selling that record player.
So another thing that comes up a lot, I see these a lot where I live, CB radios. They sell for decent money. And one thing that I think is interesting is I sold one without checking if there was corrosion. And these are things that you would learn if you sold CB radios. If you sold vintage electronics, you would know about all this. You would know about corrosion. You would know about bugs. You'd know about how age affects these items. And it's just, there's a huge misconception out there that you love clothing and that's why you sell clothing.
No, I am not some kind of clothing, connoisseur at all, man. But, clothing pays the bills. Clothing is in abundance. And, I could have the best clothing collection in the entire world. I could have all the polo grails and the most fire Instagram account. But like, I prefer to sell stuff and collect money. So like, maybe I'm like a money connoisseur and not so much like a materialistic connoisseur. And for me, that works best.
We went to on Sunday. I went sourcing with my crew, and they told me a few things they noticed. They're like, "Hey, it takes longer for us to talk about what we found on Instagram than to list it." And I was like, "That's true." Trying
Yeah.
to pose the item that you found so that it's amazing. You found this amazing grail in the middle of nowhere, and you brought it back from life. It was going to go in the dumpster if you didn't find it. That takes a long time. It only takes a few minutes to list it. It takes an hour to talk about it.
Totally, man, because you have to create that content, artistically in your brain. You got to create it, like you said, make it artistic in the photo. You got to write a fancy, description for your photo.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to respond to all the wow, that's awesome comments. So, like, that's a massive amount of time just to, stunt for a little bit on Instagram. And at the end of the day, once you find a lot of stuff, like, it's not that important anymore. Like, all this stuff is the same.
I think that if you treat it as an occupation, like a trade, like if you were a plumber, you would just go there, do the plumbing job, go home. I think that's kind of how you should treat sourcing. If you go and you admire everything that you find, you're going to lose half your day. It just takes so long to research everything.
Yeah, research is probably the number one thing that cripples a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I say number two is them not being perfectly happy with the photos. But
Yep.
research is definitely the number one most crippling thing, because even for something like a Tommy Bahama shirt, like, people feel that they need to find like that Tommy Bahama shirt to compare comps on. But at the end of the day, like, they're all the same. They're all going to sell for the same price,
Mm-hmm.
more or less. So just price it, moving on to the next item, because research can totally be crippling.
I think, this is going back to what is available in your area. Another reason why I think clothing is a safe category for most people, I think half of all items sold on eBay are clothing. Not the dollar amount. Obviously, categories like electronics or vintage or antiques might have a higher average sale price, but just sheer quantity of items. People go through clothing a lot. And if you go to a thrift store, at least where I live, 80% of the thrift store is clothing.
Yeah. Oh,
They're basically clothing stores.
yeah. I mean, I only have one DVD player. You have one, or maybe none. But like, everyone has 20 or 30 or 50 articles of clothing
Yep.
minimum. So like, the amount of waste and like massive amount of clothing that people do not care about in the United States is totally staggering, because there's so much inventory out there for all of us to list hundreds and thousands of items per week, and like, there's still more. So like, we haven't even gotten it all, and there's still so much more of it. So like, that's why it was so easy for me to just decide and say, you know what, I'm just going to go for clothes, because just sheer volume, because everyone has 20 pieces, 50 pieces, 75 pieces, and nobody cares about it. At the flea market, it's on the floor. Like, there ain't one Nintendo system on the floor. Like, that's on the table, prime location. But
Mm-hmm.
no one puts shirts on a table. That's on the floor. No one cares.
It's so hard to get a deal on a PlayStation at the flea market. It's going to be almost retail price.
The hardest things to get a deal at the flea market are video games and Jordans. Even grandma knows Jordans is worth money. Even grandma knows video games are worth money. There is no way to get a deal on video games and Jordans. And like, you can get a deal where you make money, but like, there's no oh, just give me 25 cents for that one. Like, no one is selling any video game for 25 cents. And even if grandmas know about it, like, be prepared to pay up, man. Like, there's no deals on those two items.
So we're gonna actually go over the kind of the secret, magical tips right after the break right now. So if you guys are listening right now on YouTube land, and you want to listen to the rest of the podcast, go to patreon.com/the Resellers Podcast. And we actually record all of these podcasts and all of our coaching calls. So you can listen to those as well. But it's really cool being in here, recording this live and getting the questions as they come in. But now we're going to go into some of the super hacks